Hi, everyone, and welcome to a new webinar. Oh my gosh, my mind, right?
Uh-oh. Here we
Dude,
go.
yeah, I don't even know what's going on. But yeah, so today is Friday, November 19th, 2021. And thanks for being here. Someone's going to join us in a little bit. So it's nice to see you guys here. And yeah, so let's do this. We are painting our hands. And let me just say before you continue, if you have the photo of the hand or not, that it could be one or two or doing something like together or showing garment or even holding something if you want to. So there are many possibilities. And also in regards of like composition, scale could vary from up close to really tiny, featuring something around it. So hopefully the images that we posted on the shared folder, and also when we presented the episode yesterday, will give you opportunities to reflect on an intention and also on how you want to tackle compositionally this subject. So I decided, let me see. Yeah, I took a photo this morning and I just wasn't sure. I took a few photos with the hand extended and the hand down. It's so complicated and there's so many meanings. And also technically, I wasn't sure if I was showing all the fingers or not. And I wanted to find something that would give me a range or variation. At the same time, I was very aware of the composition. So when I was just looking at the hand, I just made sure that I had like something around it that would give me enough padding to make sure that I wouldn't do anything strange, or I wouldn't have to multitask in regards of like featuring this on the paper. So finally, I just got this, and I wanted to simplify things and make sure that the background wasn't too much part of the narrative. So I'm just going to do this with a background, perhaps without texture. And I remember that I have some self-portraits that contain some of this foliage or green background. So I thought like color-wise, it would be nice to have a cold or a cooler tone against the tone of the skin. And I went to print it out this morning, and the printer obviously does whatever it wants to do. And I just felt like the colors are a little bit more yellow. So perhaps doing this process, I will be reflecting on how much more pink I may want to use with the hue, but I'm just going too much ahead of myself. So yeah, so let's just go for the potato shapes and alignments. And I have, my format is 12 by 16. I'm using Arches paper. So we've been using 9 by 12, different from Arches. And just because there are a couple of brands that now provide oil, paper for oil, but the 12 by 16, it's only by Arches, the classic standard for oil paper. It's such a gorgeous, beautiful, historical support. And I just set up the photograph right at the bottom because I want to give more space on top. I want to let the painting breathe a little bit over. But the first thing that I'm going to do is just set up the top of my composition. And I'll talk about anatomical aspects about the hand and maybe the wrist, which is important. So I get some points, the thumb, I'm just going to put it right here. And I think I think that's okay. So I'm gonna start maybe just explaining the different parts of the hand. We've done this a few times, and I always love um, going over again, because I feel like, every instructor or book just does it differently. But in this case, I think what I'm going to do, I need to set up the parameters of this. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to pretend, or I'm going to do a line that's going to be the outer area of the hand on the right, and then another line that's going to be the outer area on the left. And since I'm using a similar proportion of the photograph, what I'm going to do is actually, I am going to, so this is 8 3/4. So what I'll do is with 8 3/4, I'm going to set up the actual 8 3/4. I think that's it. So here we go. So what I did, instead of like jumping to the potato shape, I just set up the actual width of the hand, and I use the ruler in this case, but you can use, if you don't have a printout, you can use or guesstimate the distance between the edge and also the actual subject. One single focal point right here. So this should be a little bit easier in the sense that we don't have like several points of view, focal points. Okay, so I think now that I got this, this is the height. So I'm going to start by just doing my potato shape. And so here we go. So I'm just going to make this line a little bit darker, the actual scaffold, because that's going to help me a lot. And I'm going to make one line right here. This is just the turn. So I'm using a combination of a box that features or will feature the actual size, the width and the height. And then I'm doing horizontal alignments to determine certain inflection points. Oops, hold on a second. Okay, here we go. Okay. 1 second. Oh. Okay, so I think I need to do something here. I need to do something here. Hold on. Okay, perfect. Oops. Okay, got it. Okay, so yeah, again, I just did the scaffolding, the parameters, and the reason why I did this is because it allowed me to sort of like position the focal point in a way that I can control. So I measured this with a ruler, and I just centered that measurement right on my format. So, and then I'm just going to do my first potato shape. There is another inflection point right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and translate it. And then another inflection point on the on this finger right here. So I'm going to add it and translate it. So, okay. And then on top, there's another sort of like breaking point or inflection point, or I think that's okay. So, so Jen, I haven't been able to watch this version of the movie yet. I watched David Lynch a few times, and I was reading about the hand scene, and in the book, apparently it's right at the beginning. But I remember that David Lynch, it just happens a little bit later. So does the movie open with that scene of the hand, of like him putting the hand inside?
It's pretty close to the beginning. Yeah, I'd say it's in the first half an hour. But
Okay,
that's how the book starts too.
right.
It's pretty, yeah, pretty quickly. That hand scene's that's
Yeah,
it's a tough watch.
it's what?
It's a tough watch.
It's a tough watch. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, I just remember that. I mean, I was like really young, or I was much younger when I watched the movie, and that scene always, it was like a horror movie. It was like really,
Yeah.
really hardcore. Um, but anyhow, so I just found a few articles precisely talking about that scene in the new version. And one of them was really good because it approached not only the scene, but the overall theme. I love when some critics or writers approach something so complicated and they extract the overall meaning. And in this particular article, I think I'm gonna take time to find it because it was really good. The writer said that essentially the movie and the story um, is about how small, tiny, mundane events in someone's life could really alter the order of things from a bigger perspective. And so the tiny decisions that in this book the character makes based on either logic or based on either love, they completely break up whatever is supposed to happen. And the writer calls this inflection points. So I just love that idea. And I can't wait to watch it. um,
Good. Yay.
I've never read the book, so I don't know about it. But it seems like people were happy with the adaptation.
I haven't read the book either. But yeah, I'd say it's a really well done film. I think that this is like they said there it's only part one, and I from what I hear it's only about half of the first book. So they've got a long way to go. So people were very happy that there's going to be at least a second one. It would be kind of crazy to not have at least one book covered.
Yeah, interesting. So it's just gonna take me a little bit of time to do that. But yeah, I thought it was interesting to use the analogy of a hand and pain and stuff to um, yeah, to do this. And then a few days later, I saw that piece. I didn't read it in the LA Times, but I saw it on Instagram, and they did an album with the images that this photographer took of the Holocaust survivor. And there's something really artistic about the photography. So first I read the story because the images caught my attention. And I think she did an amazing job at just creating something really beautiful that then opens to a really interesting personal story. Um, and yeah, that photo of the hand, yeah, I just thought it was really powerful, and what a serendipitous thing, you know, after listening to this podcast. The podcast was not about the movie at all. Someone just mentioned it. So okay, let me see if I can find the article. I'm not sure if I will, but I'm gonna try. No, that's okay. So I'm not gonna spend time. But yeah, it was an article specifically talking about that scene in the movie and what it meant. And at the end, there was sort of like a summary. So going back to the anatomy of the hand, so I'm going to go through it one more time and see how we can apply it based on our hand, our own hand. So there are different components or parts, moving parts. One of the wrist, one of them is the wrist. And the wrist, again, using the word inflection point, the wrist sort of like can become the narrower part between the forearm and the palm of the hand. So there's always this idea that from the wrist, there's a diverging direction on both sides, and also diverging from the wrist to the palm. So sometimes we make wrists and forearms the same width. That's my point. And we have to be really observant about the distinction between the width on the wrist and then how from the wrist, the lines diverge on both directions, towards the palm and towards the forearm. So clearly, maybe it's like a little bit more vertical on my side, but notice that here there's a divergence. So I want to make sure that that gets captured. So I'm going to start doing structural lines. So that's the first part. And the habit that we have is that we tend to make palm and wrist and forearm the exact same width when it's not. So be very observant about how that applies to your image of your hand. And sometimes using exaggeration is not a bad idea. So from the wrist, then the diverging lines, they create one main shape, and that main shape is the palm. And the palm of our hands could be sort of like summarized or synthesized or into a rectangle. So anatomically, I think we think of the palm as having both the surface, but also the back. So this may not be correct in anatomical terms, but for us, we see that piece as having or belonging both on both sides of the hand. So this is the palm of my hand, but this is also the palm of my hand, the way I see it. So I try to draw the edges of this shape using the wrist as a beginning or as a reference point or as a starting point, and then not thinking of where the fingers are going to be or where the thumb is going to be. So in a way, I don't know if I can do this, but no, I can't. So I only draw this area right here. I only draw this area right here. So depending on where you have your hand or how it's positioned, this palm may be visible or invisible, but the idea is to just acknowledge that there's a shape there that needs to be filled up or taken care of, whether it's visible or invisible. So in my case, the upper part is not visible, but what I see, it's the bottom part. So I'm just going to try to make as many lines as I can see. So, and you know what I'm going to do is also, I'm going to do axis lines on the actual edges. So, and then I'm going to get a brush. And I'm going to try to find those angles. So that's good. Maybe a little bit more. This is good. So what I do is I pivot the angle of the paintbrush handle in a way that locks the wrist and the position where it is, and then I just pivot it to the side, and I try to compare the angles. Yeah, maybe this one, it's a little bit shaved in. So I'm trying to break it down into steps, one step at a time, wrist, and then palm. So I think from this point, what I do is I try to find a rhythm or a pattern in which I can see the four fingers branching off the top of the palm. And then I just spend some time to see how the thumb creates this sort of like V shape. We tend to not look at that distribution. We think of the five fingers coming from the same side of the palm, but it's important to divide, categorize, or organize the fingers into two categories that are very distinct, and they are based on where the fingers are branching off from on the palm. They're the four fingers, the longer fingers, I guess, the four fingers, they are all anchored on one area of the palm, the top of the palm. So that's one category. And then on a separate category on its own, the thumb sort of like connects or branches off in a different way from the side of the palm. So how does this apply to a hand that we have in front of us? So in my case, that gets covered, but I can see that there is this sort of like axis or angle in which I visualize where the top of the hand may be. So I know that this line right here may comprise the beginning of all the fingers. And then once I have this, since I have the fingers organized or order from forward position to background or foreground to background, I think what I'm going to do is just to start with the finger that I see first. So that's my best bet. And in that sense, I'm going to spend some time here. So I need to already shave it because I feel like that's the most important finger. So I'm going to spend some time to see if I can work with alignments and find a position of that finger that allows me to continue building the rest. So I already lowered that finger. I try not to, once I have the potato shape, I just try not to rush. And I try to be extremely observant. So here we go. I think that's it. I'm not going to do any knuckles or finger nails or anything like that. So another way to measure this is by actually, I think this needs to be a little bit shorter. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead, and now from this finger, I'm gonna go ahead and do the one next to it. Since they're foreshortened, here we go. So, okay, so this works. Okay, so again, I'm working one step at a time, and also I don't want to go too deep into sketching because I know that when I start painting, I'll be able to make changes. So have that in mind. And just remember some of the examples that we posted. The hands are stylized, exaggerated, there are distortions. So I try to understand that I'm making a translation, and precisely with the anatomy of the hand, my focus is not to worry about what this is going to look like, because if I divert my energy into feeling frustrated, it will just take away energy from being observant. So I'm gonna make an effort to try to be as observant as possible, and then I'll decide if I want to make changes later on. Okay, so I think I just have the second finger, and this is a little bit separated. I think that's good. I'm gonna go to the third finger right here. So it just I need to shave this. It's a little bit narrower. And I think that's it. It's barely any. I didn't have much time to type the collection essay. I was infatuated by Christie's, the auction house, because when they present one of the lots, they just have a page for the painting or whatever piece, the piece of jewelry or furniture or sculpture. And then they do several things on that page that describe the details, the title, the author, and everything. And also next, they describe the origin and of the piece and how many hands it has changed and when it was first sold and all the records of ownership that that painting has had, which is one of the guarantees that it's not a full guarantee, but that shows you the authenticity of that painting. And then what they do is a little essay about the painting, and that's sort of like a sales pitch. But in that essay, they have to amplify the significance of the painting by talking, and usually goes like this. They talk about stylistic elements about the painting. So you can read things about brushstroke and color and this and that and composition. But then they have to also pitch the conceptual significance of the painting. And I love the creative ways in which whoever writes those mini essays come up with reasons why someone should really buy that painting, conceptually speaking. Anyhow, so why did I say this? Just because I feel like this is such an important subject. It's not just an anatomical study. It's not just about documenting our physicality at this moment in time, but I just feel like it's almost oh my gosh, what's the French expression? An act of resistance. But some fancy people use it, something de la resistance. I forgot. A piece de la resistance or something.
Yes, that's it.
It's so funny. I roll my eyes every time someone uses it, but it just makes sense. It's sort of like we're creating a physical object depicting our hand or hands, and it has a meaningful significance because when we paint, it's a hands-on job. So it's a portrait of our basic tools, and I feel like more and more this is something that gets written out of history. And I was writing and trying to be aware not to use the symbolism or the history of this Holocaust survivor, because obviously there's a lot of things that could go wrong when people use that as examples. But there's something about that that I just feel could be used artistically, in the sense that this is our main tool and we're using it, and this is gonna be written off history at some point. And we are at the beginning of an era in which, the digital, it's taking, it's replacing the analog, the hands-on. It's been happening for a very long time, but I just feel like it's accelerating. So it is a piece of a resistance or whatever, just because we are reaffirming the validity and importance of our main tool, our hands. So I think I'm okay with this. I'm gonna remove and also, I see some digital art out there that really sucks. I'm sorry. It's really bad. And then we were just kind of like going over art history and realizing that a lot of painters did studies of hands. I mean, if you want, Jen, you can find the hand studies that Van Gogh did, because he did tons of hand studies that I haven't seen before, that are really interesting. So I think it's a subject that it's not really regarded as contemporary today, just because no one thinks about painting their own hands. But I think it is. All right, so before I do any shading, I'm gonna go ahead and try to refine some of the lines, and at the same time, just bring some structural lines. Oh, and I was under the sun, or the sun was just hitting the hand, and I just took the opportunity to take the photo, and understanding that there were some shadows. So sometimes, especially when drawing or painting hands, because they're such three-dimensional subjects, when we do the outline, we may get confronted and thinking, oh my gosh, this is just absolutely terrible. But I would say, hold that thought or that feeling. Hold your hand in the paint box for a little longer. Because it's all about the highs and lows of the shadows and the highlights that will contribute to making the hand much more expressive. So yeah, it is painful right now, but we still have a lot more tools to apply. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the also the last part of the last part of sketching. So I'm multitasking right here, and what I'm doing is refining some of the curves on the outline of my silhouette, potato shape, adding some structural lines, and at the same time bringing some shadows. Maybe a little bit of the line on the fingernails, but not too much. The line of the fingernails, it's a tricky line because we think it's really important, but I compare it to when we paint teeth. We think the gap between the teeth must be painted, and then we create such harsh focal point. Same thing with the edges of the fingernail. Yes, they are important, but we have to be careful because if we make them too strong, they will just take over. Also, it's interesting because when we do portraits, we tend to spend more time with sketching just because we know there are so many components. With hands, I just feel like that's also a subject that requires a little bit more attention, mostly because we have to be observant of anything. Like already I'm seeing that, you know, there's certain fingers that need to be trimmed. So I'm making already some changes. Yeah, I think so. I think so. I think so. And I'm going to maybe find some or try to exaggerate certain elements when I start painting, because I feel like there's something really expressive about using exaggeration on hands. But I'm gonna stop right here. So anatomically in our bodies, we don't have two lines that are parallel, meaning like two outside lines. So I'm generalizing, but my point is that if you see anything that becomes parallel, that's to me, I'm going to use the expression red flag. So that's a red flag. And I just looked at this and it looked more like a hot dog than a finger. So I know that there's a little bit of a shaved curvature right here. And then on the other side, there's more of a belly. So yeah, I just try to, and the curvature on top, it's also different. So there's more of a round curve on the right side of that fingertip. So that alone created the idea of more the tip of a finger that has a specific orientation than what it was before, which was a little bit less interesting. This, for example, it's another line that feels very straight. And in fact, I see here that there is a little bit of a curvature, and then it goes sort of like creating an almost like an S. So again, being very observant, very much having your entire focus right now, not on what this looks like. Try to make a shift because if you sort of like divest your energy into thinking this doesn't look like this or that, it will just prevent you from being observant about variations on the line direction. Okay, so I think this kind of like broke that evenness, but I think time-wise, yeah, it's okay. We're gonna spend a little bit more time with the sketching, but I think I'm ready for the wash, and I'm happy about this. Maybe there's a line here that needs to be shaved a little bit more, the continuity. It's a little bit too outward. And this one, it barely shows. So I'm just gonna do a little bit of darkness. Oops. And I didn't have my palette, so I'm just gonna do it really quickly. And I'm gonna put all the colors. And yeah, I'll do it super quickly. I'll possibly, what I'll do, maybe I'll use yellow ochre and ecru to do the I need to get gray. The skin tone, we'll see. And then I'll do maybe yellow, ochre, and black to do the background for now. Because I don't want to use green right away. So I just want to do the wash. The wash doesn't have to match the color exactly. I'm going to use a lot of definition also, so I need to be aware that I have to rebuild it. So when I do the first notes, I'll spend more time thinking about the color that I really want. If you are making two hands, so then I would say you don't necessarily need to sacrifice the time, but I would add less detail on each of the hands, at least at the beginning. You can always increment the detail later. But if you're doing two hands, naturally, I think you have to split your focus and add less detail than you would if there was only one. Yeah. It was nice to see also contemporary painters painting hands. Really interesting. So big brush, thin turpentine, solvent, and I'm going to start with darker to lighter. So I'll do maybe black and yellow ochre just to get, yeah, that area wet. It is not green, but that's okay. I just need to prime the paper, seal the charcoal. Here we go. And at the same time, every week we sort of like discover something new. So I just want to keep in mind the style of the painters that we talked about. And bring that premise or idea to this painting also. So try not to be too precise, make sure that I don't feel too constrained by the line, opening up brush strokes outside, trying to go beyond coloring. And again, I think one of the most important things that I was thinking the other day is like avoid being too self-conscious. Avoid being too self-conscious. I think most of my insecurities or criticism come from the fact that I just feel self-conscious. I feel like what I'm doing has to be the perfect response to something outside of me. And I always judge my actions, my painting actions based on that association, that outside association. I'm self-conscious about what this would look like. So I think, trying to be less self-conscious sort of like opens up more opportunities to explore, to be less afraid. I think that also has a lot to do with the symbolism of the hand in the box, and so, yeah. I just love also the fact that in Dune, as far as I know, two things. Well, I don't know if I should go there, but so apparently the world that it depicts, it's a post AI world, a post computer world, and it's kind of nice actually that someone made a sci-fi movie depicting that the demise of a civilization happened with the use of technology. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jen, but I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, well,
Do they talk about that? Do they say anything about technology? And
there's definitely like pieces of technology in the film.
but do they
Yeah.
specifically say that they're on, artificial intelligence or computers or something?
No, they don't refer to it like that, but there's definitely like pieces of advanced, like if you consider like a plane a piece of technology, like there's spyware, there's
Right.
communication devices, there's things like that that involve technology for sure. What I thought that was really interesting is they talked about essentially how climate change has affected the planet or planets, and how like different they are because of it, because it's more than one planet. So they say like the words like off world, so there's like intergalactic travel.
Oh, wow.
So I mean that's definitely technology.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean they don't specifically, like it's very different from something like Blade Runner, where suddenly it's like, all of like half of us are robots. It's different. It's definitely different than that.
Mhm.
But at the same time, like there's definitely advancement in technology within the world for sure.
There was another interesting writer who said or based the review, started the review saying that that's there are no guns in this sci-fi movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's kind of cool if you ask, because you know how I feel about Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't remember.
Is that true? That's so funny. I don't know that there's so many different kinds of combat.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess that's right.
Yeah, it was
Um,
it was interesting that, someone actually brought the attention to that, specifically there.
mhm.
So I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I almost feel like though that like what it is instead is almost like more lethal.
More, oh.
But there's also protection that isn't developed yet, or at least I don't know that it is. It could very well be very much developed and hidden from us civilians. Um, but there is a type of, protection in the world too that, from my knowledge, doesn't exist in ours, which I thought was really interesting. But then there's like a bazillion other ways to be killed. So
Right.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Interesting.
Am I the only one? Has anyone else seen it? Let's see who's here. Tina, Julie, Lois. I don't know. Really interesting to hear from other people. I want to watch it again now that I have a handle on the story and have a handle on what's going to happen. I feel like I can watch it more closely for all the other juicy things that it provides. Production design alone.
Yeah, you mentioned.
cinematography. Like it's
Yeah.
just stunning.
Sorry about this. Okay. So I'm just good. I'm done with it's not too bad. It's before the first hour, so I feel like it's not too bad. I was able to do the wash, and I'm ready for first notes. I finally have like a clear plastic. So first notes, more and more we have been thinking about how important this step is, more so than second notes. We have always given second notes more importance because it's the part that develops the painting much more and creates this beautiful illusion of form. But during first notes, we really have to kind of like struck um, the, I wouldn't use the word perfect, but the right amount of color direction or accuracy. That's maybe not the good word. And yeah, and also we are rebuilding the sketch. So I'm gonna go ahead and then use a medium brush and start doing this. And so I'm jumping to first notes, and I'm going to create a little bit more opacity. I'm going to be able to bring back more edges and make them a little bit more defined. So there's a component on first notes that's anchored in drawing. And I think that's very important. Just going to use this and see what happens. So, but at the same time, I have to start exploring and trying different color samples to see what the direction is going to go color wise, because the staining the imprimatura doesn't really do that. So I'll use a smaller brush, and then I'm going to go by the photograph. And I'm mixing just yellow ochre and ecru, and I need a little bit of the burnt sienna mixed in. Okay, I think that's good. So when we mix skin tones, there is always a tendency, because of the pigment in the paint, to become a little bit too yellow. But I'm gonna go for it. And actually, I just did the lighter version, and I should just do the darker version of this. So let me see if I can just do a darker version of the skin tone, because I want to go darker to lighter. I want to go darker to lighter. I'm going to put like, instead of black, I'm going to put raw umber. It's more red. The quinoc, yeah, I think that's good. The quinacridone is a great color for skin, but I don't want to bring it yet. So I think that's okay. Maybe a little bit of the umber. I'm going to just play with my neutrals without the quinacridone. I don't think I need it right now. I could just bring it during the second notes. So I think I got it. So I got the darker and the lighter version of this. And I'm just gonna go ahead with the oil and try to bring back the edge or the edges. So I'm gonna start darker to lighter. This is much darker. So I'm just gonna, and I am going to try not to make my brush strokes way too conforming. Just because I feel like, again, that's kind of like, I think it's gonna help the painting actually. So darker elements, and I'm using the medium brush to bring a little bit of definition. I'm bringing back the definition just a little bit. So there's this area right here. I'm gonna do the ring later, but for now I'll pretend that I'm not wearing it. So what's important is to build a little bit of opacity. So it allows you to actually layer the paint over and make it stick. Okay, so I'm just doing the darker notes. There's a little bit more of the red here. So I'm making variations between the tones. I see that here I would really benefit from getting, yeah, I'm gonna use the pink instead, but we'll see. Some quinacridone. That's okay. I am going to bring the black, and actually I'm going to draw the hand from the outside because this is it's pretty dark. So I think I can do a little bit of darker notes right here. Darker to lighter, that's what I'm doing. Darker to lighter, blocking out, thinking of like big masses of color. So first note, color blocking. And trying to bring back that line that I had with the sketch, but in the shape of an edge. So it's an opportunity. I just don't retrace back for the sake of retracing. I just I keep an eye and see if there's something that I can observe that it's different. So I take the opportunity to redraw. So again, first notes, this part of first notes, it's based on drawing. Yeah, it's based on drawing. So that's what I tried to do. I'm gonna bring a darker note. Yeah, even though we consider portraits, I was just thinking, we consider portraits as the ultimate representation of someone. I think hands are so expressive that to me, they have, I wouldn't say the same importance, but they're not too far behind a face. They're not too far behind the face in the sense of really translating the essence of a figure. Okay, so maybe I should start bringing some yellow, and so I can do the yellow and black. And I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to work on peripheral areas. Let me just bring maybe some of the shadow here. So I can at least do the darker. Yeah, the darker notes. What is making this noise? Oh. Well, this is dark too. So yeah, I'm just gonna continue with the darks before I get too distracted. the dark shadows, and then I'm going to jump to the background, the peripheral areas. I think that's also very important because so these past few sessions that we had new students or new painters rather joining us, we've noticed that a lot of habits that we try to redirect. And one of them was finishing one part of the painting before moving on to something else. It's so hard to leave something unfinished. And it really is important to just understand that not everything needs to be on a linear basis, because the bottom line is that the painting will progress and evolve all at once. So I'm saying this because what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the shadows and then not continue with the highlights here, but go to the background. So I will not leave this finished, or by all means. And I think that's important. So also, the rag is our friend. So I'm gonna try to replicate as much as I can Jeremiah Goodman's approach to painting. Very physical, and then very the opposite of self-conscious. I think there's something so inspirational about seeing someone create with so much confidence and not being self-conscious about what each step looks like. Okay, all right. So yeah, I think it's sort of like working. Using the rag to blend a little bit. Yeah, to blend a little bit. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I don't know what's like. So I think these are the shadows, right? Yeah, I'm gonna stop here for the shadows, and then I will go to. I need to get some Hansa yellow to Hansa yellow and gray. Hansa yellow and gray. So I'll make some of that botanical green with Hansa yellow and black. And then I'll work on the periphery. Because as far as I'm concerned, you know, I think it's important to support the focal point with peripheral areas instead of actually developing the focal point. Just because we know of the dangers of overworking an area. So, okay, here we go. I'm gonna have to do a bunch more, but yellow, Hansa yellow and black, chromatic black. And I'm going to start building a little bit more opacity. See if I can just like stop this noise. Okay, I stopped it. And trying to use non-conforming brush strokes. So some oil, and the yellow and the black will create such a beautiful green. So I don't have to worry about that. And I think that's going to be my focus in the next 10 minutes. Just focusing on this layer, the peripheral area. I think that's good. Medium brush, and just continuing with this. Yeah, I think it's amazing how sometimes we think, well, it's background. There's nothing really important going on there. We need to work on the values. We need to work on the shape. We need to work on the drawing. But a background can really help whatever you have a lot. So I think peripheral areas are underrated, completely underrated. So yesterday, I ended up, the traffic was so horrible. So my idea, Jen, was to go to the ribbon cutting ceremony for the new David. But
Right.
I just, it was just brutal. It was just brutal. The traffic was so crazy. So I found myself driving by the LACMA, and I really wanted to see the Obama portraits and the Black American portraits exhibition next to it. So I just decided to go, and yeah, it's I highly recommend that exhibit. Is the Obama portraits are nice and it's amazing and stuff, and they put them both in one big room. But the Black American portraits, it's an exhibition that features work from the permanent collection of the LACMA, and it's African American subjects. The majority of the uh, artists are African American, but there are a few that are not. Alice Neal, for example, so there's a painting by her.
I just posted some of her work on our
Oh,
shared album. I'm just going through and posting some of my favorite artists and hands that they do. So
oh,
you'll have a little
fantastic.
treat at the end, but that's so funny.
Perfect. So yeah, thanks, Jan. Yeah, I have to say, it's a really good exhibition. So
Amazing.
I spend more time than I usually do. What was really amazing? I have to tell. Let me see if I can turn this off. I don't know what's happening here, but so hold on a second. I think that's it. I think that's it. So anyhow, I was gonna say that I made some notes, but it was so amazing to actually see pieces by some of the artists that we have talked about in this, in this sessions over time. So including you guys, there are a couple of daguerreotypes from the studios of the Black photographers that we talked about, and they're featured there. First of all, you think that the LACMA has an incredible collection, incredible permanent collection, because these paintings I've never seen at the LACMA. But so you have this sense of this museum really being a very important museum. I never had this experience before, going to the LACMA and stuff. I always felt like, the LACMA tried to be a museum that wasn't really. Anyhow, I don't know how to finish that sentence grammatically. Try to compete with New York or Chicago, and always coming short because the collection is just, you can't compare. But
Sorry, guys.
no, I have to say, looking at this, it's not a big exhibit. There are just a couple of rooms, but it just makes you feel like, wow, no, there's more to the LACMA than just what you see or you have seen. Um, and yeah, so Kerry James Marshall, so they have a really important piece. Lorna Simpson, they're featuring a collage that and a couple of pieces, and we talked about her, and we did a collection inspired by her work. Carrie Mae Weems, another contemporary African American or Black artist. We did collection based on her. Laura Aguilar, we talked about her recently, and we did also a collection a few years ago based on her work. Kehinde Wiley, of course, they have like massive pieces by him, which is incredible. Barkley L. Hendricks. It was so nice to see. There was one painting of a gentleman in pink over a pink background that it's so beautiful and yummy. And well, it belongs to the LACMA. It's in their permanent collection, so it's featured there. Betty Saar, we did many sessions based on her. Jacob Lawrence, Charles White, just reading because I took these notes of the artists that we have talked about. We have made work inspired by them, and then it was so wonderful to see examples and know that the LACMA owns some of their pieces. Buford Delaney, one of our favorite painters from the Harlem Renaissance. Henry Taylor, Catherine Opie, a contemporary photographer who lives in LA and works in LA. Consuelo Canaga. Consuelo Canaga was a photographer. We did an American photographer, and we did a series inspired by one photograph that she took of a mother and two of her children, I believe. And it was a really spectacular collection, I should say. And that photograph is there, the same photograph. So I've never seen that photograph live. So it was nice to see that. It just brought memories of the work that we did. So it's much better than the Obama portraits in the sense that it just makes you feel that culturally the LACMA, it's much bigger than we think. And also that we are doing a fantastic job of bringing focus to artists that are very important and deserving of that focus. So yeah, highly recommend that. And I think I'm done with the background, although I would just maybe add a few more notes. And so yeah, it was nice. It opened until 6, and I found parking on the street, and I thought, this is it. And it's free for residents. They are moving forward with the construction. There are a few cranes, massive cranes on the other side. So that is definitely happening. So yeah. So I'm using the background tone to define or draw or reposition some of the edges. And again, I'm going to try not to be super self-conscious about positions and stuff like that. I'm just going to try to apply it as I see it. So being observant, but not being too self-conscious. I think Leonardo da Vinci has a painting of an apostle. I just now that I'm continuing the work, I feel like this is a similar position of the hand. So Jen, can you find that painting and see if it's similar? Maybe I'll use the Leonardo da Vinci
Sure. Yeah.
image as a reference. It's just sort of like a figure, and it has the hand like turned a little bit like that and pointing upward. Okay, so I think I am really happy about the background. I think this was a good decision. It's always good to work on the peripheral areas. It just gave me a little bit more definition on the edges of the subject, the focal point, I'm sorry. So that served its purpose. And now I think I'm just gonna go ahead and try to bring some of the, I'm still on first notes, and I'm gonna continue with first notes by bringing some flesh tone on the rest of the hand and see how that's gonna go. I am not sure how that's gonna go, but I will find out. And again, I'm just getting a different color sample, and yeah, I'm just gonna block it for now. I'll use the just gonna block it. Whoops, that has a little bit of green, but that's okay. Actually, this could work on my to process the color a little bit more. So if you notice, kind of like pixelating, I'm kind of like pixelating the strokes. Because for now, I don't want to spend too much time with crevices and folds and pleats and stuff like that. I just want to apply this color block. A general application of the color block over. And I'm not going to paint any nails for now. I'm just going to rebuild them later. Okay, well, you know, it's I think it needs a little bit of color, but I'm going to do this as a base, and then I'm going to jump to second notes and try to bring some of the color that I can see. And it's so deceiving because I'm looking at the image and live, and the colors are a little bit more similar, but on the screen, I feel like for whatever reason, the camera is picking up more reds. So it's so deceiving to sort of like look at something from live and then look at an image of it. The colors don't, as we know, they don't match. And I'm going to bring some white actually. How about that? Just to create a lighter version of the skin tone on this area. Okay. And then some. I think I'm okay with this. I think I'm okay. I'm applying first notes. A little bit of a lighter tone right here. And I think I'm okay with first notes. So perfect. I think that gives me sort of like a little bit over half an hour to work on second notes, but I'm really happy with this stage right now. Just so I see it as a foundation to the next step. Oh my gosh. Seriously, I think I'm going to turn it off. I don't know why this. So there's nothing here, so I don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna try it out. So yeah, I'm just gonna I think I'm gonna bring the quinacridone. So we've done quite a few studies on flesh tone and skin tone, and also with purples and reds. And when we did the tutorials, we realized at some point that having a quinacridone, which is sort of like a magenta purple combination thing, it's a great tone to have to move the needle of the skin tone more towards warmth and veins underneath the skin, regardless of the color of the skin, than just relying on the actual pigments. Because the pigments, the mineral pigments that we use tend to give more of a yellowing aspect. So it just depends. It just depends where and how, but it's not a bad idea to have that quinacridone. And what I'm going to do next, I'm just going to pick one area and start developing a wider range of values and temperature also. And I don't know which area I'm going to work on first, but I don't know, honestly. So I think I'm not going to do the thumb because it's a little bit blurry and I feel like the focus is on these fingers right here. So maybe these two fingers. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to recreate. So this time what I'm doing is I'm recreating the color. So I'm recreating the color and I'm going to, here we go. Reapply, but in a more thoughtful way. Creating more variations. I noticed that this is a little bit darker on top. So what I'm doing is just spending a little bit of extra time. And also bringing some of the deeper folds. So yeah, I'm going to spend time with this area. This skin right here, whoops, quinacridone is a non-organic color. So what it means is that the pigmentation capability is so much stronger. And I just have to be extra careful. So this shadow, it's a little bit lighter. So I'm going to bring a little bit of lightness in this shadow all around. And at the same time, there's a little bit of blurry elements. So I'm just closing the gap in certain spots. Closing the gap. And yeah, I think so. Slowly. Again, this is a slow process. It takes time and we're doing a translation. I think it's important to tell that to ourselves, which means that, you know, things will look different and that's the whole point. But it's important to see other artists also, how they render this and what kind of techniques they use. Making this a little bit darker here. So I'm trying to bring like a counter light from the other side. And the fingers, the way the light is reflected on the fingers, it's not even. So depending on the light direction, you're gonna have like an area that's gonna show the top of that finger a little bit lighter if that's where the light reflects, and then the side of the finger is gonna have a different value, and then the bottom of the finger. So going back to the idea of like trying not to create things that are even or flat, I'm going to try to bring attention to those variations. So I noticed that the side of the finger here, it's a little bit darker, just a little bit darker. So I'm going to bring just a tad, a darker version on the side. And at the same time, the top is a little bit lighter. So I'm going to just bring, I need to mix it. I need to bring a lighter version of that skin tone on top. This is way too light, but I'll just bring this right here. So fingernails, not now. I'm not going to do the fingernails right now, but I will, what I will do is bring the color outside, close the gap. I think this is something that I can do. So I'm gonna remain or stay in this area for a little bit more. So try to create that shape of the finger. This is a little bit lower. So I'm gonna try to bring this lower. And I'm gonna start blending. So for blending, I use the same brush, but without any paint. And I'm just gonna try to blush the edge, just the edge. So it creates a little bit of softness. And I noticed that on the background, there's a lighter contrast. So I'm gonna bring a lighter green in certain spots. I think that's okay. And I'll just continue. There's a little bit of quinacridone. So again, trying to bring, and a little bit of pink, trying to bring different tones in different parts. I should probably bring some orange, but that's okay. I'm just gonna try to bring the idea of the fold on the skin right here. There's also the shadow of the other finger that helps me define this one. I forgot this shadow right here, so this is perfect. So when I become more observant in one area, then I start seeing more elements. So Jen, if you get a chance, I think David Park has some paintings, not of hands, but of figures with hands, because I think the way he approaches it, it's so simplistic, or simplified rather, that those could be good examples.
Cool.
Or references. I'm just going to bring a little bit of a highlight on the nail, and there's a little bit of white on the side. So rather than doing the actual line all around it, what I'm doing is just bringing highlights and shadows where I see them. So that is not a continuous. And also, Philip Guston has some hands that are pretty caricaturesque, but also really good. I think those are good examples. Philip Guston.
Gustan.
Yes, Guston.
Okay.
Yeah. So because again, it's very important that we try avoiding being self-conscious about what this looks like. So I'm concentrating on the actual nail. I'm bringing a little bit of lights and shadows because I'm seeing it right now. And I think that is, yeah, I think that's good. So I brought the illusion of a nail without painting it too much. And I'm just gonna continue. I think there's a little bit of lightness right here. Maybe the zinc white could be a good color to bring at this point. I am very happy about this. I need to darken the bottom a little bit more. So I'm gonna bring, and also I'm gonna work on the actual shape, because I think the shape is as important as the color. So I'm bringing a little bit of belly right here. I'm gonna expand the side, and then bringing some lighter element. Should I bring yellow here? I'm not sure. No, no yellow. Quinacridone on yellow? No. Maybe? Yeah, quinacridone on yellow. Why not? So I just want to bring some warmth. It's too pale on top. I think that's okay. I think that's okay. I feel I want to work the darker areas a little bit more. And then I'm just gonna also, very important, I'm gonna blend certain, the edge quality is also important in the sense that some areas will define the finger and some areas will be shadows. So sometimes blending the shadows would be a good idea. This reminds me of two collections we've made. When we did the Firewalkers, that was a really good way of bringing a limb, I guess. And also when we did the socks, reminds me of, even though there was no skin, but there was something interesting about that painting in regards of the anatomical aspect of it. Here we go. Don't desist. Don't desist. Stick with it. Very important to maintain our focus and maintain our work. Okay, I think that's good. So I think I got one finger out. And I'm okay. I'm gonna decide I'm okay with the temperature. I'm gonna keep it this way because I can always increase the warmth, because I feel like I need to increase it at a later time with a glaze. And I am 100% sure I will see this so differently at a later time. So I'm going to go for the second finger. And I think here I'm going to bring the ring. So I'll just do darker elements. And I'm going to bring yellow ecru and white, just to create a tone that feels like a metallic reflection. Here we go. Yeah, for now. And then I'll just go back to the flesh tone, the darker flesh tone. Okay, perfect. I'm not using chromatic black for this because I feel like chromatic black is just going to create more of an ashy tone. Okay. So time-wise, okay, good. So perfect timing, plenty of time to do one finger at a time. And I'm just continuing with this one. And I feel like it's important not to spend too much time just because I know that I will have to go back over this. Yeah. One more time. All right, so I'm just building this finger right here, trying to create different variations on the skin tone. And I need to bring a little paler top of the finger situation here. And with the fingernail, I'm going to do the same thing. Try to find the darker and the lighter, but without drawing the entire thing. So it's a little bit of a lighter version of the skin tone right at the bottom. Also on the skin on the side. And we just have to capture a few notes. We just have to capture a few elements. It doesn't have to contain everything that we see. I think that's very important because we get so frustrated because it doesn't look exactly like the photograph. And I just think there's something much more important here, just kind of like to give it enough work. Doesn't matter if the proportions work or not, but try to be something about painting that I appreciate is the amount of observation that the painting contains, or is the result of, rather. So the amount of observation, there's something really magical about seeing someone translate an image and dedicating time to bring up some color or highlight something that feels so non-important, and yet it's translated that way. So yeah, I think that's important. It's the amount of attention. It doesn't matter how it ends up, how it falls, how it lands on our painting. It doesn't matter how it lands, but it's how much effort we have put, how much thoughtfulness, attention, consideration we have put. I think that becomes a strength on the painting. So that's my second finger. I think I want to bring a little bit more of a highlight or maybe I should just go to a next finger because right now I'm just fussing. So after I have this, I'm just kind of like fussing. And I think we need to be aware what's our strategy and how we want to apply it. Because right now, I think this accomplishes um, a lot and I need to just move forward because I could just be here and then retouching and retouching and then making a mess. So I'm just going to stop. I'm going to stop right here. I want to do so much more than what I have, but I'm going to stop because I know that it's very important to know when to leave something unfinished, underdeveloped, with just a few steps left to complete for the purposes of the entire or the development of the entire painting. So that's it. That's a good example. I'm going to move to the next finger. Let's see if I can do at least the 4 fingers and maybe even the thumb. And I could just accomplish that with this. All right. So here we go. With this finger, there is a line that separates both fingers that's very barely visible. And a little bit of a highlight falls or lands on the finger. Okay. And then I'm just going to bring and some grayer, darker note right here. And right underneath, this is darker. There's a little bit of a lighter light. And it's darker on this side. So I went back, so Jen, I went back all the collections that we've done, and I didn't see one with just doing our hands, which I don't think that's right, because I feel like we've done maybe not this, but do you recall any collections that we've done in the past doing portraits of our hands?
Man, I don't know. I feel like we must have,
We
right? Or
must
like
have.
our hand with something or like holding something.
Yeah, for sure holding something, and the hands have been like but specifically just our hands, I did not find anything, believe it or not.
I
Like
trust
actually
you.
the hand as the subject, period.
Yeah. No, I can't think of anything.
Yeah.
And if you can't, then we definitely haven't.
Yeah, no, I just
And
like
then
I
there's so much
tried,
better.
but I don't think so. Which is, I think we've done some studies maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like we have, but I don't, there's nothing. There's no record if we have. Things with subjects with hands, for sure.
Right. Yeah. Because I feel like we've done like anatomical studies of
Yeah.
hands before.
Yeah, because we've talked about this many times. Maybe hands in portraits,
Yeah.
perhaps, but
I don't think our own though. I don't know that we've done our own.
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, I just
Mhm.
went back the lessons as a, you know, all the way back, and I didn't
It's kind of
see.
amazing.
Yeah.
You
Nuts.
would think that would be like low hanging fruit.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no. Okay, so I'm just continuing and I feel like I need to do some tweaks on this finger. And all right, so I'm just gonna continue and maybe just shade this down a little bit and bring some blending. Again, sometimes we get caught up with the look when it's just a combination of everything. The values, the shadows that really create a better illusion. Okay, so this is a little bit, so like, so I remember, for example, holding peaches and stuff like that.
Right.
But not like this. I'm
Not where the
gonna,
hand is the star.
right. Yeah. It's good that we're doing it. We should do it more often. Okay, so again, the darker, the lighter, there's a lighter version right there. A lighter line right next to the indentation of the nail. So that's more important than where the nail is, or the border of the nail. And darker at the bottom. And underneath a little bit darker. Non-conforming brush strokes. Okay, so that's it's a little bit too strong. The nails are a little bit too strong, So I'm just gonna try to soften this. I need to soften that a little bit more. And bring some lightness maybe at the core. Yeah. Okay, that's a really thick finger, but that's okay. That's okay. And then I'm just gonna go ahead. I feel like that's gonna be my last. I'm not gonna get to the thumb, but that's gonna be. I think it's pretty good. I'm gonna do the index finger, so I'm really excited. I feel like this is working really well. At least I think it's working well. So let's go for that. So paying attention, just focusing rather than paying attention. I mean, paying attention and focusing are such different things, you know. I feel like paying attention is more like a passive thing in which you just sort of like are, you subordinate yourself to something outside, whether it's a person or a screen or whatever. But observing, it's certainly a much more engaging and active, not passive. So I'm gonna use that word, you know, try to focus on observing variations. Squint my eyes. I notice that, you know, there's a crescent shape. Oh my gosh. So I think you heard me say that on Saturdays there's a Clubhouse, by the way. The app is just like terrible right now, but there is a club that still goes on Saturdays, the Oil Painters Club, and they bring a little bit of art history, and they talk about some paintings. So every week they bring up an artist, and this Saturday they're going to talk about Henri Le Citaner. And I was like, oh, okay, because they follow us. Maybe they just they've seen that painting. And by the way, we mentioned this on Tuesday. So, and I don't know if you can find that results, Jen, if you want to go to Christie's and just kind of like type the name. Let's see down here. I just send it to you. And because the painting that we got inspired by 2 weeks ago, it sold for a price below expectations, which was a little bit sad, but we thought we would just share that with you. I guess, people rather spend their money on someone else. So yeah, someone bought it, doesn't say who, obviously, below market price, market expectations. And this was, it wasn't part of the lot, but it was, I think, the same day that the Van Gogh and the K-Bot sold for record-breaking. And also this week, I don't know if you have seen or read, but Frida Kahlo's self-portraits broke records as well. She's now her self-portrait sold for, I think, $35 or something million, and it's the most expensive painting by her ever sold. Okay, so I'm just gonna bring a little bit of, I feel a little bit looser with right now with the brush. So yeah, I think the painting was that La Table painting in gray. It was priced, the estimate was between 300,000 and 400,000. And I think it sold for 290 or something like that. I'm not exactly.
So it was estimated between 250,000 and 350,000, and it sold for 237.5.
Wow.
Do you want me to post it again?
No, it's okay. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a cool painting, but hey, he's still not considered or regarded as an important painter, I guess.
And then the Frida one.
Oh, the Frida, yeah.
Christie's too.
Yeah, if you want to post it, but yeah, I think that made the news. That made the news. So I have a few minutes, and I think I'm gonna sort of like work on some of the crevices on the thumb. Let's do it, because I feel like that's gonna bring it together, because I feel like this is really developed the fingers a lot. And again, try not to overwork, try not to be self-confident, self-conscious. Just focus your entire energy, almost like as an act of not meditation, but I don't know, as an act of, I don't know what, but focus your energy on observation, just an observation. Meaning, I see something that I didn't see before. I see a highlight I didn't see before. And let that process build your painting for you. So sorry about that. Yeah, so again, focused on observation, meaning, yeah, let your eyes go back and forth, catch anything that you feel it's not on your painting and you think it's important to apply at this moment, and just rinse and repeat, I guess. Continue that process of observing and translating, and don't worry about what that is gonna look like, because when we sort of like stop and then we contemplate and analyze too much, It's not a bad idea, but it just takes so much energy out of like what we could be actually doing, which is just building the painting. And also the background, this is a little bit, I need to shave that finger from the outside. Oh yeah. So necessary. This was so necessary. I feel like that thumb had like a really strange. And at the same time, on the other side, I think that's good. I feel like that thumb, the edges are a little bit softer. So maybe what I'll do is just soften the edges a tad to bring a different perspective here. And maybe just open this a little bit more on the outside. Yeah, a lot more work to do, obviously. And we always feel like, oh, well, now this looks a little bit off, or this looks like this or that. So I just need to, but anyhow, I was very ambitious about the thumb, but that's okay. Oops. That's okay. I need to bring some of the wrinkles here on this area. And then some lines here, and I'm going to do it really quick. I see so much. Well, I want to do the wrist. I want to do so many things, but I think I'm going to sort of like stop here for now. I think I'm really happy about the stage that this is at. Certainly, I just want to go back and start developing things a little bit more. I think the fingers look really good, and the shadows. I would want to maybe bring orange next time, and then warm up the skin tone a little bit more. I think it needs to be a little bit more orange. But I was glad about not spending too much time on each of the fingers, just to make sure that I wouldn't get trapped, because it's very easy to try to correct, which are words that should not exist in our painter's vocabulary, by the way. And then that's it. You slowly but surely, you start draining all your energy. And then you feel so tired that you don't want to continue with the rest. So you have to manage expectations. You have to also reinforce your commitment to it, and at the same time facilitate the process by just leaving things not completed, because otherwise you'll burn out, I would say, at the first obstacle or the first challenge. And then emotionally you start distancing yourself from the work, which is something that we use, if I may use this as a deflection, because we were not able to sort of like manage or tackle an obstacle when it came our way. But everything's a practice, and every painting is teaching us something about ourselves and about our process. So this definitely was super helpful. And we're going to take 10-minute break. So in 10 minutes, we'll reconvene. You can work if you want to, but stretch, walk around, drink water, make sure you take care of your physical body, and then also make sure you upload. And before I forget, we're going to stop the recording right now. But before I forget, please upload a photo of your corner, your workspace, your area, because we want to post it on Wednesday. It doesn't matter if you've already done it. So a different angle or with a different subject. So it's always fun and people love it. We'll see you at 1:10, 15. All right, 1:15.